Hey, it's 12:05 right here on 90.3 FM. Helping Seniors of Brevard is here. That means it's Wednesday. And your host, Kerry Fink, is here as well. He's also the executive director of the organization. Kerry, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, John Harper, and thank you. And thank you, listener, for joining us. It's always pleasant to be here on Wednesday at lunchtime. It's actually Ash Wednesday, and we're here at lunchtime. We always enjoy gathering together around the radio, 90.3 FM, WEJF. Hello to those of you who are joining us online at WEJF.net. And again, the family of listeners who enjoy podcasts and will hunt this down because we always make these available on Apple, iTunes, and every place that you get podcasts. And I think you're really going to get a lot out of today's show. Now, don't be afraid of what we titled this. We titled this Understanding Grief, the grief process. And so that sounds like it's going to be dark and heavy and maybe not a pleasant topic. It's but I think you're going to really enjoy the people that are here in the studio because you're going to find that there's a lot of hope, and in fact, just working your way through it is part of the process, and a better day is coming. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk about the fun of how we actually all met, right? So first of all, let me introduce, I would call her actually our co-host, because she's been a friend of helping seniors like almost since the day Joe Steckler founded the organization. She runs a company that everybody gets confused with us. True. We are Helping Seniors of Brevard. We're the Florida 501c3 that Joe Steckler, our president and founder, created after he had retired from the Brevard Alzheimer's Foundation, building up those Joe's Clubs, which, as you know, serve seniors and their families in 3 locations throughout the county to this day. And so when Joe had retired from that, he said, Kerry, we've got to start an organization because I keep learning that people have problems that go beyond strictly memory care, and we need to find a way to do that. So 12 years ago, Joe founded Helping Seniors of Brevard, and we've been operating the county senior information line ever since. It's that free call at 321-473-7770. And when you call that, you'll hear the friendly voice of Nancy Deerdorf, 33 years registered nurse experience, but also who, Jennifer, much like you, has been part of this really since the beginning. In fact, her roots go back to helping Joe get those Joe's Clubs built. And so Nancy is a person who's really dedicated to making a difference for seniors. And we were all together at a Brevard County CDBG meeting, which is it's a community block grant development group that's trying to do the best that they can for the community. And so we had the opportunity to present a couple of requests for grants because, as you know, if you've listened to this radio program once, you've heard us talk about the challenge we have in our county with senior housing. And so we were recommended for a grant. Still has to go in front of the Brevard commissioners for official approval, but we were recommended for a grant to really help Nancy in that work. And so Jennifer Barton with Seniors Helping Seniors, who is a company that sounds so similar. You hire seniors, but you help seniors in their homes. And you firsthand have also seen what this senior housing thing is all about.
Oh, absolutely, Kerry. I am so excited about the prospect of this grant so that helping seniors can help more seniors find affordable housing and safe housing, because we are getting the calls. A lot of times people do get us confused, helping seniors versus seniors helping seniors. So they'll call our office and we hear the stories and it's heartbreaking. So we help where we can, and then we pass them to Nancy, and she does an amazing job at helping seniors find what they need. So excited about this grant. Congratulations to you and to Nancy for sitting through all those meetings, and to Marty, our grant writer. What a great team that we have with helping seniors.
No, it is exciting, and then, as you know too, then we have Dr. DeLegdish and the Omni Healthcare Group has made now that space available for us in what they call the South Apollo Professional Tower, which is a fancy name, but it's that beautiful building that's right over there near the hospital. And they've given us a space, 5,500 square feet, and we're excited about the things that we're going to be able to do in that senior resource center We can have training classes. We can have group sessions. There's all kinds of things that are coming with that. And I think that's going to be one of the things that we're able to really headquarter out of there is this initiative about trying to make a difference for seniors in the housing. And so it's a long way of getting to introducing our guests, but we get to do some fun things because as a nonprofit, if we don't raise money, we can't do the work. We only exist to serve you here in Brevard County. And as we say often, we're 100% local. We are only about Brevard County. And so some time back, right before COVID hit, as a matter of fact, one of the gentlemen who's on our board of directors, he's a professional travel agent. He says, I've been a travel agent. He's a senior himself. So I'm quoting him. I'm not saying this. He said, I've been doing travel since dinosaurs roamed the earth. And he and his wife are special needs certified. So one of the things they really enjoy doing is helping seniors travel who may have thought their traveling days were over. Maybe they need oxygen, maybe they have diabetic stuff that's going on, but they really enjoy the challenge of helping seniors travel safely. And he goes, Kerry, Joe, I have an idea. We can create a Helping Seniors Travel Club. We can I can help seniors make their travels and make sure a portion of that comes back as a donation into helping seniors. And maybe just for fun, we could create a group of people who will go locally on a cruise. And because, you make great friends when you're on a cruise, and then they fly back to, I don't know, California, and you guys are friends on Facebook and you're sharing grandkids photos. But the whole idea behind this, as Chris was talking about, is get people from Brevard County together so they get to know each other. And then when they get back, they say, let's go have lunch Wednesday or things like that. And so we were going to do our first several years ago, and then COVID decided that wasn't going to happen. And so we got our first Helping Seniors inaugural cruise off the ground. Was that in 2021? I think we went out October 2021, or was that? Well, anyway, losing track. But we had the privilege of going back out in January of this year. We had a blast. We had, Chris said it was like 150 people, give or take. And it was just so much fun. We had a 2-night sailing, a 7-night sailing, and a couple of the folks, see, this is exactly what Chris and Joe had in mind to do this, was people would meet each other, learn about what they do, and first of all, have a great time traveling. But neat things will come out of that. And this is exactly one of those neat things. So I'm so excited to introduce to you a couple of folks who are on the radio with us today. It's Clem and Julie Davis. How are you guys today?
We are great, and thank you so much for inviting us. Clem Etrick and Julie Davis.
Okay.
We decided, we've been married 10 years, and we decided that it was just too expensive to change names, so I decided to keep my name because I had written a book and had it published, and I didn't want to lose the identity.
Yeah. Well, it's good. And Clem, welcome too. You're no stranger to cruising, by the way. He says with his, because he's actually got his Disney cruise pin.
I know, that was pretty nice.
It's pretty impressive, actually.
Well, I couldn't find my other phone, my other name tag today, so I used my Walt Disney one. And I've been cruising for a while, and I worked at Disney for 13 plus years in the cruise line. And we enjoyed cruising a lot, and we have done quite a few of them. We've gone to 50-some cruises
Wow.
during our 10 years that we've been together in that. So we love it, and we enjoyed this last cruise especially. It was a very good cruise. We enjoyed it with all the people there, and especially the entertainment and everything that they provided. It was really good.
Yeah, we're talking about Lori Hafer and her husband Mike Hafer and their son Paul, who, by the way, are coming back with us when we go sailing in October. We'll save a minute at the end of the cruise. As we cruise through the radio show, we'll save a minute at the end of this to talk about the cruise. But we really do want to get into today's topic. And this is a tough thing because I would like to ask you guys first to just share your story, because I think it's interesting how you are helping people through the process of grief because you have lived this yourself in your life. Share how it happened.
Well, it's a subject, excuse me, that in our country we don't really prepare people for what we call the death event. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's not a happy time. But it is something that every other culture and every other country prepares. We celebrate life. We celebrate a new birth, a pregnancy, a reveal, engagement, marriage. And this should also be celebrated because, after all, we are leaving this earth. And if we've lived a good life, we go to the Lord. We've accepted Him as our Savior. So to us, it's an important thing to talk about. And that's why we got into this. Number one, I talk a lot about ledgering, which Kerry and I discussed earlier. But just to give you a little background, in 2009, my husband and I, we were living in Rhode Island, a little town that has the oldest U.S. parade in the country on 4th of July.
Wow.
And it's not even televised, which is amazing. And we loved living there. We had a really nice home and 3 rescue dogs. And one evening on December the 7th of 2009, he was walking 2 of our 3 dogs, and he was killed by this girl who was probably texting and driving. She was not cited by the police because she could have done a hit and run. It was on a very quiet street, very close to our house, and it was he took the dogs every night. And anyway, because she called the police and reported it, they did not cite her. Of course, he was killed instantly. The dogs were not. And I got a call, from the police telling me I needed to get to this scene, that there'd been an accident. And then the rest, of course, was history. So having that happen was very tumultuous. He was still working, and it threw me into, a big accidental thing that happened. It was awful. So I started ledgering. I went to counseling and decided that my future had to be to help other people through the grief process. And so that's how we started, and I'll tell you more about that later because I want my husband to tell his story and how we met and what we're doing now.
Absolutely. Clem.
Okay. My story's a little different than hers, and that's one of the reasons we got together with the grief group and everything, because we both have different stories. Mine was a little longer lasting because my wife came down with dementia, and it was frontal lobe dementia, and it was about a 12-year process. And the last 2 years were very tough. And I do see quite a bit on what's going on with that. She was only age 56 when that happened. Oh. And so it's been a while. And at that time, to mention it, I remember you talking about Joe and his club and everything. We did take part of that.
Wow.
Because I sent my wife over to Joe's club, and she really enjoyed it over there when she was there. Right. So it was a plus. And so after that time period, it was in 2010, I guess, that my wife passed away. And it was a few months after that, because I wasn't working at a Disney Cruise Line at the time, and my boss kept calling me to come back to work. And I said, no, I don't want to come. That's part of the process that we've seen, that you really don't want to do anything for a while because you're just kind of devastated. Finally, after a couple months, I did come back to work, and it was one of the best things I ever did. Because what you see, I worked at Disney Cruise Line, and you see so many people coming that are so much worse off than you are, that it's a plus. And you see so many older people, you see so many people that help, and all the WISH program and everything that we see, and it was really it opened my eyes a lot. So by August of that year, we went to my wife, which is now my wife. Both of us were living over in the area, and she went over to the meeting that we were going to have over there at Holy Name of Jesus Catholic Church, and we both went to the grief program over there. It was a one-day grief program. and we sat next to each other. How did I know we were going to get together? It was one of those
Fate.
things. It was something different. And we started going out together, and after a while we did get together, and we did get married. And after my kids and that kept telling me it's about time, Dad. And so
Good for them.
that's what happened on that. So that's basically the way we got together. And then we decided that we had to help people because we went through all this, and both of us had a different situation that we could help other people. And so that's why we got involved in the we first started writing books. She wrote one, and then she thought I should write one, so we did. And both of us wrote a little bit about our old way of doing things, and the way we lived and everything else, and trying to help people. So we decided that we're going to have to try and help other people. So we went and thought we'd start a grief program over here because there wasn't one at the place we were at, and we moved over to IRCC, which is Indian River Colony Club. And they did not have a grief program at the time, so we decided to start one, and it was not an easy thing to do because you had to go through a lot to get started. And but we actually did, and we can talk more about it later, but I just wanted to give you at least an update of how we got together, and we've been married now 10 years, and we just had our first 10-year anniversary.
Hey.
Let me just interject. The name of the book that I wrote was This Widow's Walk, which is my story. And then after I met Clem and we signed up for this, we didn't know one another. I had moved down here from Rhode Island. He's been here since 1978 and was with the Air Force. He's an Air Force veteran. And so I said to him, I think you need to write a book. And he said, well, why would I do that? And I said, because writing a book, whether it's published or not, it can be the same thing as ledgering. It's very cathartic. It will help you get through the grief process. So that was the motivation. And so I helped him. And I have to tell you, through writing that book, I got to know him.
Sure.
And more about his life and what he went through. And there were many tears hearing of reliving that, which I think sometimes people don't want to relive. But it is a way of reliving it and then putting it away.
Relive and release. We'll talk a little bit more about the book in the second half of the show. And Jennifer, I was just thinking, what I love about Clem and Julie is that they're the kind of people that are so friendly, so approachable, and yet you don't know until you really sit down and talk to them how much they have been through personally, but how they've turned all that into a very, very positive thing, helping other folks move their way through it.
Absolutely. I had the pleasure of meeting Julie on the cruise. The second cruise, I didn't get to go on the first cruise, but I got to meet you on the first cruise or the second cruise. And just such a friendly face, such a positive person. So yes, you would not know that there was any grief in the background, but I think it's a testament of how people can overcome, and they can turn a very negative in their life into a positive and a blessing for others. So I'm just so happy to have them here on the radio station with us, and really glad that I was able to meet her on the cruise.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Jennifer, because in the work that you do with Seniors Helping Seniors, you are working with families and at all different stages. We often have talked about that at Seniors Helping Seniors because you do what is technically called companion care, which means helping people get to doctors. I should let you say what you guys do, but helping people get to doctors' offices, helping them with meals, things around the home, different kind of things like that. We always talk about you're really like the first level of service before things get like they need more help or something else is going on. But you've been many cases where you've been with folks right through to the end.
Oh, absolutely. And so we really do hire seniors to go out and help seniors. So either way, if I'm working with a caregiver or I'm working with a client, I'm dealing with a senior. And we have, I just ran the numbers. We've helped about 1,600 seniors over the years. And so we're in a lot of homes and we're working with a lot of families. And unfortunately, a lot of times we are coming in after an unfortunate event. A spouse has passed away, something's happened. So we see that grief process. And I see the folks who are kind of stuck. And then I see the folks that have gone to counseling, they've done something, and they're living really active, fulfilling lives. And I always recommend them to get into a counselor because we get to see the difference, kind of a third party stepping back and looking at how people are doing, and we see the difference, and it's a huge difference. So having counseling, having a book to go to, having a group to be able to talk to is huge. It really does make a big impact, and I really advocate. You know, I've had people that I'm just not a group person, I'm not a therapy person, I don't. Please put that aside and just try it, because what a difference that we see for people who have gone and been able to move on from that bad experience.
Well, Jennifer, I'm glad you used that word stuck, because we see that all the time. And there's one of the things they go through is the anger, and that's part of the anger mode. But you just don't give up. You just tell them to show up, be there. They don't have to say anything, but find a group that they're comfortable with and then do the work. If you don't do the work, nobody's going to get you up off the sofa. And another wonderful way of giving back is what you're saying, is the supporting of all the volunteer things in this community that we can do individually, which we have tried to apply to do. So I know you do a lot at IRCC because I hear the name all the time. We have a pretty good support group there of various other groups within that have nothing to do with the grief process, where they go in and they help people get all of their affairs in order and their wills and papers and things that, are necessary that you have to go through. So I'm interested in talking to you later about us being a part of that as well, because I think that would be a niche.
It's a great organization that Jennifer has called Seniors Helping Seniors. It is what you do is you hire seniors to go into seniors' homes and provide that level of care, and because those ages are close enough, then it really works. Before we get to the mid-show break, and we're going to take our mid-show break here in just a moment, I want to ask you if somebody is interested, because you guys are hiring, right?
We are always hiring, and we're always looking for people who need a little help. Okay,
so if somebody is interested and I want to just point this out real quick, because I always thought you had to have like all this special training, or you had to be somehow medically something. You said no. What you really look for is where somebody's heart is at.
Right. Because we don't do any of the hands-on. There's no lifting. There's no medical. Because we are Homemaker Companion, you don't have to have that training. Although we do provide training and kind of what we do in our protocols, safety, and a lot of dementia. Yeah. Because not everyone we work with has dementia, but a number do. So we want to make sure that they have a comfort level when working with someone who has dementia. But we can be reached at 321-722-2999. Again, if you're interested, give us a call. We would love to talk to you. It's 321-722-2999.
All right. And with that, we'll be back on the second half of Helping Seniors Radio with our great friends, Clem and Julie, and we're going to be continuing this conversation about understanding the grief process on Helping Seniors Radio.
And everybody seems to like that music. In the studio, everybody always kind of dances around a little bit, and it's good stuff. We always like playing that. And Kerry Fink. We're ready to get the second half of our show underway. Let me officially introduce you as the host of the show and the executive director of Helping Seniors of Brevard. So, Kerry Fink, it's all yours.
Thank you, John Harper. Yes, we call that the music of your life because it is just great music. And
it is music of your life.
you know, there's a couple of days left in February, so if you haven't found your senior scene for the month of February, make sure you get it because there's a nice recap of the second annual Helping Seniors Cruise in there with some photos and things and a couple of the really great people that were on that cruise with us. It was none other than Clem Etrick and Julie Davis. They're a married couple, but they're both widowers, and they met in grief counseling. And so one of the things we're talking about today on the show is understanding the grief process. So welcome back to the show, guys.
For having us.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you. for
And
having us.
also back with us for the second half is none other than Jennifer Barton with Seniors Helping Seniors. Welcome back, Jennifer.
Good to be here.
You know, we were talking during the break, and it's a good moment to talk about like some of the things that you guys do that you are helping seniors and the kind of things that you look for in people who come to help you. So that's your cue, Jennifer. I'm holding up the big sign over here.
And I was not prepared. He caught me sleeping.
You're good.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was looking at the raffle cars. I was totally.
We could talk about that for a second, too.
I
We got to save 5 minutes at the end, talk about the cruise and the raffle cars.
Okay, so we'll talk about my Dodge later.
Yes, we'll talk about
Okay.
your Dodge later. There's a story, folks. Stay tuned for that.
Can I interject one thing?
Yeah.
I want to give a little plug to Chris and Betty.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Chris Morris and Betty Powers.
Yes.
And I said, you need to call your company Powers by Betty. Powers Cruising by Betty. They have really become very close friends.
Yes, they're terrific.
We met them because of the Scene magazine and picked up on a first cruise. And also did the cruise down the Mississippi.
Yeah, that sounded
in
like
December,
a lot of fun.
which was fabulous. They do so much more. They give so much more
Yes.
back to the community than that we are doing all of our business through them.
Yeah, they are
Cruise
they are
business.
terrific people. And like I said, we're going to save a minute out of we need to save a couple minutes out to talk about both the car raffle because those are fundraisers. Those keep us going on the Helping Seniors world. And we really are blessed to have Chris, because it was his idea. He comes in and says, we should do that. But it was actually an idea that Joe had talked about from the day that Joe started, because he's all big on getting people socializing together. And just what we're talking about in the grief counseling process, part of it is getting you out of your shell. And just getting around other people, even if you, like you guys are saying, even if you don't necessarily want to talk about things, just getting around other people is part of the process. But back to the original question, Jennifer, if give people, because most of us don't know. We just think we're going to get help in the home, but we don't even know what that means for the most part.
Well, for every client, it means something a little bit different, and that's what's a lot of fun about what we do is you never know what we're going to be doing until we get into a client's home and assess what their needs are. So for some clients, we're just doing a weekly transportation out to the grocery store, the post office, stopping by the pharmacy, whatever errands they need to do that day. So we're only in once a week to help with a few little things. And then other times we're in on a daily basis. We might be helping do a little bit of respite care for the family so that maybe hang out with the husband or the wife while the other spouse goes out and does the shopping or goes out and has some me time to nourish themselves because they are the primary caregiver. So every client looks a little bit different. But we really get to get in there and get to know the families and be a part of their team to help however we can. So a lot of transportation, some light housekeeping. We might be making a meal, doing a medication reminder, whatever that senior needs that fits the bill.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot, how families who maybe are up north in the Midwest or something like that, they really count on you guys to help look after mom or dad or aunt or uncle, whoever the person is. And then you really become kind of like the hands and feet of everything that's happening down here and giving them reports and making sure everybody's up on everything that's going on.
Absolutely. You know, we're writing the articles for the safety
Yes.
for March. That is one of the big things that we do that kind of goes unspoken, but we're always on the lookout. We're looking to
Right.
try to make sure that client is safe in their home. And unfortunately, many times we have thankfully successfully stopped a scam before it
wow.
happened.
Wow.
So there's so many scams that target seniors. And I think Florida, unfortunately, we do have a lot of seniors that live here. So they target Florida because they know that our population, you know, is higher here. So phones, emails, texts, it's amazing. And it's amazing how good these people are. And unfortunately, sometimes how much they know about us. So they kind of know what to say and how to get themselves into a senior's life without them suspecting it. So we're always on the lookout trying to make sure that they're not being scammed and that their hard-earned money stays with them and is for their use and care and not for anybody else's.
Yeah. So
We're
important.
communicating that with the families too. We're going back and saying, hey, you know, this is what we've noticed. This is what is happening. You know, we've noticed one of our gentlemen. This is years ago down in Barefoot Bay. And if you know Barefoot Bay, they're smaller lots. He was paying $400 a month to get his lawn mowed. This
Whoa.
is probably 8 years ago. So
Wow.
that's not
That's a lot.
maybe $60, and that would have been on the high side. So, you know, trying to be very observant and communicating with the family that, hey, I think there might be a problem here, and making sure that they know what's going on.
Yeah, and you guys you've also pioneered a program called Electronic Caregiver, which is you guys have like so many facets of how you're able to help families. That's a thing where you're able to actually help them get set up so that everybody is staying safe or as safe as possible.
Yes. And the reason why I loved the electronic caregiver in particular, yes, it is a help I've fallen on, I can't get up button. So it's a safety button, emergency alert, but it goes with you. You can take it wherever you go. So you can be walking the causeway, going over to Wickham Park and walking through the park on one of the trails. And if something happens, you can still press the button. It has GPS, satellite. They can find exactly where you are in the middle of nowhere in that trail in Wickham Park and be able to respond to you. So a lot of our clients are still active and independent, and we want to keep them that way. And the electronic caregiver helps do that. So they have the comfort level of, I can walk and I can still be protected. So it's peace of mind. We hope they never have to use it, but it's good to have, and it's a fairly low cost system. It starts at $39.95 a month. Right now, they're actually got a 15% discount and waived the activation fees for February, but there's no contract. So it's a good way to help keep our seniors safe and to help keep them at home.
Yeah.
What would be a phone number that people could call
So
to find out about that?
Well, you call our office. You can reach out to us. We can explain. Ricky actually will go out, demonstrate. If it's something that people are interested in, great. We're not pushy about it all. It's either going to be helpful or it's not. But reach out to 321-722-2999.
That's this number for Jennifer Barton, Seniors Helping Seniors.
Yes.
And that's good to learn about electronic caregiver. It's good if you say, hey, maybe I do need some help at home, or maybe it's like, hey, I have a little time. And I love how you put it when we've talked about this before. You say you love the heart of a volunteer who doesn't mind taking a paycheck.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Kerry, I was excited this morning. I had a call from a lovely lady who is 87. She'll be turning 88 this year. And she said, I really don't need help yet, but I know that it's coming. So I want to go ahead and get started now so that so I thought, oh my gosh, somebody is listening. We're trying to get our ducks in a row all year. We've been preaching that, and somebody is listening. And I was just absolutely thrilled to talk with her.
That's great.
And to be able to kind of ease her in. And so she's got us if she needs us.
No, that's
Yay.
great. And I want to recommend, I already recommended you get the February senior scene so you can read up on our friends Clem and Julie and just how much fun we all had on the cruise, and then you'll make plans to come with us. But you are actually the lead article as we get ready when the March issue hits the streets. We call ourselves the Yellow Pages. We're those center 12 pages in the center of each edition of Senior Scene, which is free. You can get it at 500 locations around the county. But you have a great article coming out called Your Living Home Safely Checklist. So some of these things we're talking about really fits all of that. So one more time, that number, and I'm going to get you also, while you're listening to us, grab a pencil because you're going to write down that number, and then I'm also going to give you information on how you can access Clem and Julie's books. So you'll want to take notes on that too.
Yes, absolutely. So 321-722-2999 is our number.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And so with Clem and Julie, if you were there for the first part of the show, you heard a little bit of the background that they actually, a widower, both met at grief counseling, and you guys are the perfect example that proves there is hope after what has to be the most horrific tragedy that you can ever go through, I think, almost in life. And so you guys not only put that into practice by orchestrating and working with grief counseling, you guys have gone and you've taken the time to get accredited on the hospice side of things, so that you guys are really serving the community, and then to take the time to share your story and the process in your book, Julie, called The Widow's Walk by Julie. You say Pflum?
Pflum.
Julie Pflum Davis. And then Clem, you share your story in The Widower's Walk, Clement Robert Etrick. And I'm going to say this again because I want you to jot this down. You're going to be able to find these at Amazon.com, but you're going to want to carefully write this down so you don't get confused and find some other things. We're going to make sure we get those links and we put them up on the helpingseniorsofbrevard.org website. So we're going to make sure people can find this as simple as possible. But the two books we're talking about, The Widow's Walk by Julie Pflum, that's Pflum Davis, Davis, and then This Widower's Walk by Clement Robert Etrick, and that's Etrick. And if you know anything about Amazon, if you'll type enough in, it will find it for you. But we're going to try to simplify it and get it on the helpingseniorsofbrevard.org website so people know how to get it easy. And, you guys really not only, there was something that struck me that you guys were talking about as we were getting ready for the show. And you said, a lot of times you talk to people and a lot of grief counseling programs are like, here, watch this videotape. And that's not really what I think most people need at that moment, is it?
Yes, you're exactly right. What we actually did when we wanted to start this program, IRCC, Indian River Colony Club, has been in Vieira, was the very first place that was built like that as a community. Now has 760 homes.
Wow.
And when we moved there, we found out, it's been there, they're in their 37th year, we found out that they had never had a grief support group.
And this is a retirement community.
It is a retirement.
So if you didn't know that, that this is a retirement community, so it's probably something that's been needed.
55 plus. So when we found that out, we said there's a need. Okay, then since we started that, we've also found out that a third of the people in there are singles. So we have addressed the singles group previously and said, hey, you cannot stay in your home 24/7. Somehow we have to get the word out. You're by yourself. A lot of them have people coming in to take care of them, to do various things. But recently in November, no, actually it was in October, our neighbor across the street from us fell and laid on the floor for 30 hours before anyone found her. And she's in her 90s. And we said, now this is pretty bad. So we have to really figure it out and do something. So we did address the group. And we said, buddy up with some of your neighbors. Turn on your porch light. And your neighbor sees the porch light the next day. If it's not off, then they know to check on you.
Ah.
Some of the women got together and they send emojis to each other, which just says, I'm okay. That's their a
good.
buddy system. We've suggested the button idea, the alert necklaces, so on and so forth. When our neighbor came back after being in a home for 4 months, and she's back in her house, now she has somebody coming every single day. But that doesn't include the nights. It doesn't, there's only so much you can tell people they need to do. And whether they adopt that idea or not, you've done your thing. You've tried. So we pop over with flowers for her sometimes. And we had our anniversary party. We took cake over to her and shared a little trivet thing that we gave out as a gift. So, every community can do this.
Yeah, it is about, Joe Steckler, our president and founder, in the middle of COVID, he launched this idea that really is the epitome of what you're talking about, called Stay Connected. And he said that's really what he wants us all to do, is stay connected, because you may be able to help somebody just by being at the right place at the right time. And that's kind of what we're talking about. With what you guys have done in the whole grief area, you've actually taken it, because you not only did you write the book, but you've actually written a workbook that you use. And I'm really hoping, as we get into our new Senior Resource Center, Brevard, there's going to be some opportunities for us to figure out how we can share the experience and the expertise that you guys have helping people through this, because it's so important. It's something that everybody is continually going to find themselves facing at some level at some point, right?
Another point I was going to make too, I was sitting here thinking of why we have had both of you come into our lives, why we had Chris and Betty come into our lives. Every person you meet at the time, you don't always know what part they're going to play. But this is God again coming in and saying, hey, grab this, run with this, do something with it. Here's an opportunity. We keep coming back. I mean, we were with you that one time.
Right.
You asked us to come and be on the show. So I see that as a real opportunity, and we're going to follow up with that.
Good.
So
Yeah.
thank you.
So getting back to what you were saying, and then looping in with Julie, Kerry, we're all going to be in that position at some point.
Absolutely.
In that grief position, whether it's a parent, a spouse, or unfortunately, we're all going to be there at some point. And going back to the very beginning, what you said, Julie, yeah, everybody wants to be there for a birth. That's fun. But a lot of people have a hard time, especially in our culture, being there for a death. And it's an honor, but not a lot of people look at it that way. I do, I think, because of what I do. And personally, I just had a very close person pass away. And so having you guys here today, you and Clem being here with us, I'm taking personally.
Right.
Because I think you're here to probably help me a little bit through this too, and to be able to help my friend through this, because she's now found herself as a widow. And how do we, as her support community, help her? And do we know, we probably all learned what the stages of grief were eons ago, but refreshing our memory of what that is, what that looks like, and being able to help a friend, a neighbor, through that process, and being there for them in the appropriate way. So I am so glad that you're here today, and sharing your message, and definitely go out and get that support.
Okay.
Well, the interesting thing is most people know what the stages of grief are, but not everybody experiences them in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
In that order.
In that order. So, just to go over it a little bit, denial is usually the first thing. This can't be happening. It couldn't happen to me, but it does. The next one is anger. which is intense emotions redirected and is expressed as anger against inanimate objects, strangers, friends, or family, which involves your attitude. The next one is resenting that person who has left us, seeing it as a burden. Blaming the doctor or the medical people. The next one is bargaining. Secretly make a deal with God or a higher power to postpone the inevitable and bring this person back. The next one is sadness and regret. Worry about the cost, the time spent, the person. And the last one is finally coming to acceptance. Coping with a loss, personal or singular, and having that experience. You cannot help anybody go through this. You cannot suggest to them, but you can listen to them. And there are a lot of books, and we've had some professional counselors in our neighborhood who moved. One lady moved to Oklahoma, and she suggested, would I like to have her books? And she brought us all her books. We've had several people do that, and out of those, we were able to glean the information that we wrote when we wrote our workbook to try to incorporate. And we're always adding to it and always adding chapters. And I think Clem has something to say.
Well, we do accept the 4 tasks of grief, out of the 5 tasks of grief. We've kind of went a little differently on it because we went through a different person, which was Warden is the name that we went to. And we had a couple of them, like the ones that they give you is like accepting the reality of the loss, experience the pain, adjusted environment, and then you have an ending. And that's sort of the basic things for it. And, that's the basic for how you're going to attend that.
Well, I am sure going to ask you guys to, is it okay if we repeat and continue to develop on this on another show? Because I think this is a topic that, to be honest, we live with. I mean, you never know what you're going to run into at any point along the way. And this may not be relevant for you today, but there might be a day that comes up, then all of a sudden, like, oh, I remember hearing about that. That's a lot of the times how it works. We find that with people on the help. We've done shows, since Joe founded the organization, and then they become relevant to somebody at a certain point in time. Many times it's like a legal thing that crops up, and now they're wanting to hunt down by all the different shows, and the same would be appropriate here. So I hope Clem Etrick and Julie Davis, you'll be back with us, and we're going to figure this out to continue the conversation. And like we said, as we get into that new office, we definitely want to figure out some of this. So Jennifer Barton with Seniors Helping Seniors, we wanted to reserve like the last couple of minutes just to talk about your Dodge.
Someday it will be mine.
The Helping Seniors car raffle is on, and
it is.
It comes all to the big fun on Saturday, October 7th at the American Muscle Car Museum. And what cars can you win in the car raffle, Jennifer?
So it's very exciting. This year we've added a car, so
Yes.
you have even more choices. You can get the new addition this year is the 2023 Mitsubishi Outlander, but you could also choose from the Mazda Miata, the Kia Sportage, the Chevy Camaro, and drumroll please, the 2023 Dodge Challenger.
I'm so proud of you for actually saying the words Chevrolet Camaro. I know that was
I
difficult.
did, out loud.
Because she is captain of Team Dodge and a Dodge supporter all the way. So how do you get tickets for this? HelpingSeniorsCarRaffle.com. One ticket is $25, $5 or $100 donation. You can also call Nancy at 321-473-7770. And she will be happy to get you squared away with car raffle tickets. It's the fundraiser that supports Helping Seniors. But what bonus do you get with each ticket, Jennifer?
For every ticket purchased, you get to go to the American Muscle Car Museum the night of the event, which, you don't have to be present to win, but you sure do want to be there because it's a lot of fun. You get to go in, see all of the vehicles, and he adds new cars every year, so it's amazing. You get food, beverages, and it's a great date night. It's a fun night out. You're helping a great cause, and you might win a car.
Yes. And in the closing moments, let me also give you 2 dates. I already gave you October 7th. That's the car raffle. But October 12th and October 15th, the 3rd annual Helping Seniors Foundation Cruise. You've been hearing Clem and Julie and Jennifer and Kerry. We're all talking about how much fun it is. Don't miss this one. You can get details at helpingseniorstravelclub.com. Talk to her. That'll get you connected to our buddies Chris and Betty, and they will get it all set up for you. They've arranged great pricing. Once again, we're going out on MSC Seaside, so this will be a new ship for a lot of us, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And that's the time we have for Helping Seniors Radio on today. Really appreciate you being here with us. Thank you, Julie and Clem, and thank you, Jennifer, for being here. We will see you next week on Helping Seniors Radio.